Okay. All right, so we're working in worksheet 6 on page 123, and I know you're already there because you said you got started on it. We're going to open the file that we started working on in class on Tuesday, the EX3W5. So let me go get that from my OneDrive.
Oh, well, maybe not it tomorrow. What the hell just happened?
Uh-oh. Okay.
I have my post-op checkup at 8:30.
Okay.
So I'll probably end up going in early just because I'll be ready.
Okay. We have a guest speaker coming to talk about home and auto insurance. So he's an actual insurance agent.
So I'm almost sure I'll be there unless something crazy happens at the doctor's office.
Okay.
But I might be a little bit.
Okay.
But everything's fine, so I should be a quick visit. So.
All right, so you have this one open already, right?
Yes, I've saved it as EX3W6, and I'm down to step 4.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through those first few steps just so I can record it. So on page 123, it says to open this file and then to save this file as EX3W6, and I already have one of those, so I'm going to name mine 6A. You're just naming yours EX3W6. Yes. Make H4 the active cell. We're going to change that if statement. We put that if statement in on Tuesday that said if the grade in cell G4 is greater than or equal to 95, then the words president's list will appear in cell H4, otherwise nothing will appear in that cell. And we're going to change that. In step 2, it tells us to edit the formula so that students with averages of 94.5 or higher may be eligible for this list. So we just need to simply change this 95 to 94.5. So I'm going to click in the formula bar, backspace, and put 94.5. Now I do need to go to cell H4 and use the fill handle and fill that formula down through cell H14, and we now have 3 students who are eligible for the president's list based on that new grade average. Now it tells us to double click in cell I4, and the reason why we're double clicking is because we can edit this if statement right in this cell versus up here in the formula bar. So we'll double click in cell I4. And the formula we currently have in here says that if the grade average in cell G4 is greater than or equal to 98, then this student is exempt from taking the final exam. Otherwise, nothing will show up in that cell. And they're wanting us to change that to a 94.5 or higher as well. So instead of 98, we're choosing 94.5. So we're going to click right in this cell, change that 8, and add 4.5. Make sure we use our fill handle in cell I4 and drag it down through I14. We now have 3 students, the same 3 students that are on the president's list are exempt from the final. Okay, now we're ready for step 4. Starting in cell L4, we're going to insert what's called a lookup table, and in this case, it is actually a grade table. So we have 0, 60, 70, 80, and 90, and then those correlate. So in cell M4, those correlate with grades. So a 0 is an F, 60D, 70C, 80B, 90A. So anything 90 or above is an A, anything between 80 and 90 is a B, actually 80 and 89. Anything between 70 and 79 is a C, 60 through 69 is a D, and anything lower than a 59 is an F. So that's basically it's called a lookup table, and we're going to use that to insert the final grades in column J. So step 5 says in J3, type final grade on 2 lines. So I'm going to type the word final. I'm going to press Alt-Enter, that's that soft break, and type the word grades, final grades, or final grade, excuse me, and press Enter. We're going to use the Format Painter button to paint this format from the other column titles to this cell J3. So I'm going to click in cell I3. On the Home tab, come over here and click the Format Painter. It looks like a little paintbrush. So I'm going to paint this format onto cell J3. I'm just going to click cell J3. I can paint formats into one cell or a range of cells. So I could have clicked that and drug all the way across, and it would have painted that format further down, but we didn't need to in this example. Okay, and in cell J4, we're going to insert our formula for a lookup table. Now it gives us the formula in step 6. We could also go to the FX button, the insert function button. Sometimes it's easier if we click that to understand the way a function works. But I'm just going to start to type it. So equals, all formulas start with an equal sign, and this is called the VLOOKUP function. So VLOOKUP, opening parentheses. And if you'll notice, once we type the function underneath here, it kind of helps us know what it is we're supposed to be looking at. So we're trying to determine on this average, student's average for these tests, what their final grade is. So the lookup value is going to be cell G4. We put a comma, because right after lookup value it has a comma, and then it gives us a table array. This is our lookup table that we just created from L4 through M8, I think. Yep. So we click and drag L4 through M8. We always want it to look at this table, so we have to make those absolute. So as soon as we select those by clicking and dragging, we press our F4 key, and it will make the whole range of that table absolute. It puts those dollar signs before the column and the dollar signs before the row. We put another column, and then it's asking us, this next one says, what do we want to appear in cell J4? Do we want the percentage or do we want the letter grade? And we want the letter grade, so that's why we put a 2 there, because it means the second column of our lookup table is what's going to appear in cell J4. So we just put a 2. We close our parentheses and we press enter. So this student who has an 89.5 has a B, and that's correct. It falls within that 80 and 90%. 89.99 would actually still be a B. So now we're going to use our fill handle from J4 and fill it down through J14. And each student has a letter grade. So go ahead and save this one. Record. Okay, so go ahead and save this one, and we're ready to start worksheet 7. From OneDrive, you are going to open, I have to get to the correct folder here. So OneDrive in this class folders in Excel, you have to open Advanced Payroll. This is the one I was talking about with the if statement, that I feel like this is one of the harder if statements, because you have to understand payroll. And most people understand it, but then to put it into an if statement is kind of difficult to find that over time. So we know that any hours over 40, they're required by law to pay time and a half. So we're going to figure that in an if statement. And we're going to figure it one time in the formula and use the fill handle so it does it correctly every time. So we're going to open this and save it as, let me open it in Excel, and go to Save As EX3W7. Page 123. I'm still on page 123. And make sure the June 1 through 5 worksheet is the one that's active, and it is by default. We're going to write an if function in cell I3 that will compute net pay for employees working 40 hours per week and those working overtime at time and a half. And it gives us this formula, but if we were to just walk through it, which we'll walk through it as we type it in here. So all formulas start with our equal sign, and this is an if statement. So equals if, opening parentheses. Our logical test says that if our total hours worked is less than or equal to 40. So we need to type in less than. Actually, we need to first hide the backspace. So equals if, opening parentheses, we need to click cell G3, total hours. Less than, equal to 40. Because that's that magic number. Anything 40 hours or less, you just get paid total hours times hourly rate. But if you work over 40 hours, you get paid the regular rate for the 40 hours and overtime for any hours above 40. That's usually where the confusion comes in. So if G3 is less than or equal to 40, then we put our comma in. So if that's true, then it's going to simply be total hours times hourly rate. So we click total hours times hourly rate. Otherwise, and this is where we get into the overtime hours. We're going to type what the book has, and then I'll kind of explain it to you. We're going to take the 40 hours, the total, well, we just take 40 because 40 hours is that magic number. So 40 times the hourly rate. So they're getting paid for their 40 hours. But we can't forget the overtime, so we have to put a plus in here. And because we have to follow order of operations for math, and once in a while, I've actually done this in a different order than what they have in the book without parentheses, and it works. So there is more than one if function for this. Actually, I've had students come up with 3 or 4, and they all work. So 40 times H3 plus, we'll put our opening parentheses, our total hours, so G3, minus 40. So this is how we're finding out how many hours of overtime we have. So we take 40 minus 40. Well, in this case, they don't have any hours of overtime, so it's not even going to figure this value if false part of the if statement. But it will when we get down here to the 42 hours. So it'll take 42 minus 40, and it'll find out that there's 2 hours of overtime. And it's going to have to multiply that then, so times the hourly rate times 1.5. And we close our parentheses. So we have if the total hours is less than or equal to 40, then our answer will be total hours times hourly rate. Otherwise, that's what the second comma is, we have to figure up the overtime. So first we take 40 hours times the hourly rate. Then we take the total hours minus 40 to find out how many overtime hours there are. And we take those hours times the hourly rate times 1.5. And we only have to do that one time. That's the nice thing. If we were doing this manually, we would have to do this math on every single person who had overtime hours. So now we'll press enter, and we don't need any absolute values in here because we want our cell references to change as we use our fill handle. So press enter. Now use our fill handle from I3 and fill all the way down through I12. Now, did it work correctly? We're going to click on sheet 2 and look to see. It does, but sheet 2 actually has the answers in the net pay column. So I am in cell like I6, and it's $311.25. So we can look on sheet 2 and look on in cell I6, and it is the correct amount of money. And that's how I always had the students check. On that worksheet that I gave, this was the very last problem because we went through if statements and we gradually got harder. And this is usually what I would see that they would do is that they would forget to add in those overtime hours. So that was the common error. If statements are very handy, it makes life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
So go ahead and save that. That's as much as we're doing on worksheet 7. What? They don't have us do it. Oh, it does have us do it. Sorry, step 3. Goodness. I've even done this, and it's only been a week. But I have a feeling I didn't even do it on mine. No, see, I didn't. This is the one I did, and I guess I did do it, the net pay. Okay. Man. Yeah, it tells us in I-12 to figure net pay, and we'll just use AutoSum. And it's correct in its range of numbers. The only thing that's not correct is that if we were doing this the way it's supposed to be done, we would include that accounting method $sign
Right.
in I-12, and also up here in our hourly rate and net pay, they would also have the accounting $signs.
All right, so
Yes, now you can save again. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to work on worksheet 8 on page 127. And we're going to open the data file called balance sheet. And if you've had an accounting course, you understand what a balance sheet is. We know that assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity, and our liability is a net worth. And owner's equity is actually, on a personal level, is called net worth. For our business, because we're an LLC, we're personally responsible for everything about the business. So our bank requires that we send a balance sheet in from our business every year, which is done when we file our taxes, because we have to do it for that too. But I also have to send in a personal balance sheet as well. And guess what program I use to do that? And I just keep a running tally of it all the time. So about every other month, I'm updating our balance sheet. So it's almost always updated. I would say 6 times a year at least, sometimes a little more depending on how nerdy I'm feeling. But I get some kind of joy out of doing that. My husband doesn't understand it, but I guess. I like to just know where we are at all times. You really want this owner's equity number to be positive. It's really bad if you have a negative owner's equity. And it's nice to see this go up. I like to see my liabilities going down, down, down.
Right.
And my assets going up, up, up. Because I have more money in cash or more money in savings or more money in investments. So on a personal level, it looks different than this. This is more of a business balance sheet. Okay, so we've opened this balance sheet file, and now we're saving it as EX4W8. So Excel Lesson 4, Worksheet 8. We are renaming Sheet 1 Balance Sheet. And we know we can just double-click Sheet 1 and rename it. That is really nice. There's a company here in Pratt. Well, it's who we bought our water truck business from. They actually own another type of oil business. And they do all of their accounting in Excel. And they have, so every invoice is a different sheet. So it'll be like from 1,000 to 1,100. I don't know their organization system, but each sheet, so it'll say invoice 1,000, invoice 101. So they can just pull up Excel and they have all those sheets down here. And it's really nice. And they've created a template for their invoice, and they have them so they can print out 100 invoices at a time. It's pretty nice. I use QuickBooks Pro, so. All right, so we're going to format this worksheet. Row 1, we're going to merge and center it. So we're going to select A1 and B1. Click Merge and Center. We're also going to choose the heading for style. So cell styles. Now today, for some reason, must be because I changed those settings, but today I can see some of these styles. I'm going to choose heading 4. Increase the font to 16 points. And the row height to 24. We can click on the boundary between 1 and 2 and drag it, or we can right click and go to row height and change it to 24. It's whichever method works best for you. Okay, 2B, we're gonna merge and center row 2. So A2 and B2, merge and center. Change it to the heading 1 style. The only difference between those two is that there was a line on that heading 2 style. Okay, 2C, we're using the control key because we're selecting non-adjacent cells. So we're selecting cell A3 first, then we're going to use our control key and select A10, use our control key and select A16. So we have 3 cells selected, and we're going to choose the heading 4 style. A8 through B8, A8 through B8, so it's basically those 2 cells. This is a total row, so we're going to use the total style. Oh, that's not, we're using bold. Sorry, I'm on the wrong line. Undo, if you just did that, undo it. So A8 through B8 and A14 through B14. A8 through B8, don't accidentally hold down the shift key like I just did. And then A14 and A15. A14 and B14, thank you. Gosh, I did the right thing, but I said the wrong thing. Goodness, and then choose bold. Oh, I don't know what it is. I'm always stumbling over words. I also leave like the last letter when I'm writing. I often leave the last letter off a word or the last number off of a number when I'm writing, not when I'm typing, but if I'm writing on board. And I don't know why that is. Okay, now A18 and B18 is the total style. Much better. So we formatted these cells B8 and B14 before we typed in them, because those will have formulas. So we can do it before or after. Hang on just a minute, okay, Crystal? I'll be right over. So 2F says B14 through B18, B4 through B18, B4 through B18. We're choosing the comma style with no decimals. I'm curious why they would choose B18 because I think that total should have a $sign, but we'll do what the book says. We'll choose comma style and decrease our decimals. Right now we're getting number signs in the cells, meaning they're not big enough for all of our data, but as soon as we decrease our decimals, they are large enough. B8 through B14. B8 and B14 is this calculation style. So in the styles, we'll choose the one that says calculation. So it has the gray box and it'll have orange text once we put our formula in there. Now we're going to increase our indent. So if you're familiar with the balance sheet and you've seen it, you know that any of our assets that fall under the assets category title will actually be increased. The indent will be increased, so they'll actually be tabbed in. So we'll select both of these, A4 through A7, and then A11 through A13. And there is a button on the Home tab in the Alignment Gallery that will say Increase Indent. And you click it one time, and it actually indents it 2 spaces, but it keeps it nice and clean so that they're all there. All right, so I would actually be better with this if I just did it without trying to follow these steps. In cell B8, we're going to use the auto sum, but yeah, we better do them one at a time. If we tried to do them both at the same time, the second one would probably give us an incorrect range of numbers. So B8, we click auto sum. It will sum our numbers right above there, and that's what we want, our total assets. It's adding up all of our assets. Cell B14, auto sum. It's adding up our total liabilities. Current liabilities should probably not be indented because we have current liabilities, we have long-term liabilities, and they don't have any long-term liabilities in this example. But current liabilities is actually, would be considered a title. So I'm going to select A11 and I'm going to change that indent and choose decrease indent. So it looks the way it's supposed to, and it probably says that somewhere. And then cell B16, owner's equity, is assets minus liabilities. So what we own minus what we owe gives us our owner's equity. And this is where we hope we have a positive number. That's the plan. And we do, because we have, in this example, we have more assets than we do liabilities. So all formulas start with an equal sign. I'm in cell B16, equal B8 minus B14. And then in cell B18, this is our total liabilities and our net worth. And another name for net worth is this owner's equity. So we're going to take the total liabilities and add it to the owner's equity. So equals B14 plus B16. And this number right here should equal our total assets. And if they do equal, then you are balanced. Yes. Divide your error by 9 and do all of those things to try to find. Yes, the goal is to have it balanced, and hopefully that works. Because going back and finding that error is sometimes hard. Especially if it's just the transposition. Those are the ones that are hard for me to find.
Yeah.
Because my brain sees them the way they're supposed to be. But if someone else looks at it, boom, they can find it right away. So, yeah. Because you just looked at it so many times, I think.
Yeah.
Just overlook the problem. Okay, we are going to insert a header. So insert, click on the insert tab. To the right, you choose header and footer. It takes us directly to the header in this view that's called page layout view. So we're in our header, and it tells us we actually have to type the word page. So we're in this middle section. We're going to type the word page and put a space. And now on our header and footer design tool tab, it says page number right here. Go ahead and click that. If we just chose that, it would just give a page number. It wouldn't say page 1 or page 2. Now there is another option where we can insert some of that, but so that's the one we're putting in the middle. On the left tab over here, it says to insert the sheet name. When we named this balance sheet, don't just type balance sheet. There is actually one of these elements we can click, and it's right here called sheet name. Sometimes it'll ask you to put in a file name or the sheet name. Those are the two common. This file path isn't really used very much, unless I've noticed it here at PCC. A lot of the files that the college will put out actually has that path in the footer. And I think that's so that they can find that easily if they need to. So if I were to show them a form and say, I don't know what to do here, they could easily find where that form is saved because they've put the path there. So I could see how it could be really, really handy and very useful, but I just haven't used it. So we're going to choose the sheet name and tab over to the far right. I think it says date. And we'll just click this current date. To exit out of this header view is, oh, it has us put a footer in also. Sorry, header and footer design tab, click go to footer. Or you can just scroll down until you get to the footer. And it says on the left side, prepared by and your name. And to the far right, you insert the time. That's kind of strange. Current time. Yes?
Okay. For lesson 70, they don't have the green directed the tan.
Yeah, it's the tan ones. And I think, yeah. They're called something different. One's called an assessment, one's called a, I don't know what it's like, a project. Yeah. We kind of categorize them. Okay, to get out of this view, we actually have to get out of the header and footer, so we click in one of these other blank cells. And in the status bar in the lower right-hand corner, go back to normal view. We have 3 views, normal, page layout, and page break view. So let's go to normal. We're kind of lost in the worksheet, so we can press Control Home, and it will take us back to A1. Yes? Okay, hang on just a minute. Let me. Okay, I'm back. All right, and we're going to do the print area. I'll be honest with you, I don't use this because if I want to print a certain section of it, I just select what it is and I choose print selection. So to set in the print area, I almost wanted to skip it, and then I thought no, because if we end up doing that MOS test for Excel at some point in the future, that's probably something that's going to be on there. So we're going to set a print area to include the asset section A3 through B8. So we'll select A3 through B8. And on the page layout tab, in the page setup gallery, it actually says print area, and you click on the drop down arrow and you say set print area. So now every time I go to print this, I'm just going to look at the print preview. So file, print. Every time I go to print, this is the only area that will print. So if I wanted just this area to print, I would just select it and change the settings to print selection. Because now we're going to go and clear the print area, but first we're going to save because they want us to save it right here. So we'll click our back arrow or our escape key to get out of the print preview. So go ahead and click save because we'll clear the print area, make some changes to the margin, edit the header, and then we'll revise it and give it a new name. So we'll actually have 2 files from worksheet 8. So now we're going to clear that print area. And I don't think we have to select it to do that. We could go to print area, page layout tab, print area, and say clear print area because we only added the one. So we can choose the clear print area. If you're not sure if it works, you can always go to print preview again to make sure your entire balance sheet is printing. If you're ever unsure of that print area being cleared. So as soon as I chose that clear print area, it deselected what I had picked. So now we're going to change the margins. So we're still on the page layout tab. We're going to choose the drop down arrow to margins and go down to custom margins at the very bottom. So it opens our margins dialog box. We're going to change the left margin to 2 inches. So instead of arrowing up, just highlight this 0.7 and type 2. And our top is going to be 1.5, I believe, yes. So highlight the 0.75 and type 1.5. You don't have to put the little inches icon in here because it's already set to inches. So it changed our left margin and our top margin. Now I'm not going to click OK because the next step says to edit the header. And I can do that right here from this page setup dialog box. And personally, I like using this better because I think that it's fewer steps. So I'm going to click the header footer tab. And it says to edit the header by deleting the page number in the middle header box. So I'm going to click custom header. See, right now you can see a preview of our header. I'm going to click custom header, and I'm just going to delete this center section. But what I want to share with you is in this header box, you'll see these same elements that we saw when we were looking at our header footer in a different area. So we can still insert elements from here just like we did before. And so you can see in our preview here, balance sheet, the name of our sheet, nothing is in the center, the date is on the right-hand side. So go ahead and click OK and go to Save As, and you're saving this as EX4-W8 revised. That's step 9 on page 127. I'm not saving mine because I already have all of these done and saved. Okay, now we're opening the data file called inventory. I'm going to edit it in Excel. Have you ever had to take inventory by hand? It's awful. I love the computer systems now. You know, as soon as you order something, it adds it to your inventory, and when it sells, your register subtracts it from the inventory. That's one of the most amazing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, and those are little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked at a convenience store. Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be awful.
I had this one lady that liked to go to that frequently. And my boss was like, don't do that.
Yeah, especially right before
inventory.
Yeah, it's something else. I worked at a convenience store when I was in
Yeah.
college, and we had the inventory also by hand. Yes. Oh yeah, like the one on by the park or the one on the other end of town?
The one by the park.
Really? How neat.
I got to be the whole checker.
Oh yeah, yeah, how fun. Yeah, the only part of my job at C-Mart that I didn't like was inventory, and that's just because I was the only one working, and you'd be in the middle of doing inventory, and a customer would come in, and you'd wait on them, and that was wonderful, and then you'd have to remember where you were in the middle of your inventory, so
Yeah.
that was tough. That, and I had to work nights all the time, but it was a job, and it paid well, and I got to talk to people, so there were a lot of positives. Okay, so we've opened inventory. We've saved it as EX4W9. We're going to insert a predefined header. Now, we can do that the way we just did it, where we went to insert header footer, or we can go to our page setup dialog box. So if we click on the page layout tab, there's more than one way to get here. But if we go to the page layout tab, in our page setup gallery, if we expand that with the arrow in the bottom right-hand corner, it will take us back to this page setup dialog box we were at. So if you don't like the other way, you can always get to this one here. And I do too. This reminds me of the older version of Excel, and I don't know if that's maybe why I like it, but I like it because it's easier for me to put them together, and I think that it's quicker.
Yeah.
So we are inserting a predefined header in the middle footer. Insert the predefined header. Okay, sorry, custom header. I was reading that line wrong. Custom header. And it's going to be page 1 of. It doesn't really tell us where to put that, but let's put it in the center. And you'll see that you know, I'm not sure we could do a predefined one from this, using this method, but this element right here, it says number of pages, and it will actually say page 1 of 2 or
Oh.
page 2 of 4. But I think what they're asking, and this is the one that I used, and it worked the way that they wanted it to. So in the header, I'm going to do it here, but I'm going to show you in a minute just the other. So go ahead and click OK. And then we're putting the date in the middle footer box. So custom footer, we'll insert the date down here. And click OK.
In the center?
Yes, in the center. See, and it didn't do the page 1 of. Because we only have 1 page, I think is why. If I had more than 1 page.
I think
And at some point,
if you go do it through the whole other way, you can get.
yes, we have a predefined. Yeah, so click OK, because we're going to look at those. On the Insert tab, on the right with the header and footer, it has this middle section of the header selected, and it has on the far left of this header and footer design tool, it says header. This is where we would find those predefined. So if we're doing something that says predefined, you must have to do the insert header footer. I wonder, and ooh, yeah, page 1 of 2. So when I click out of it, it shows me. See, now I'm wondering if I'm going to go back to normal view. So I'm going to click in this. Sorry, I shouldn't be thinking out loud whenever we're working, but I would like to know how to get to those predefined header and footers from here, because I believe that you can. Unless you just have to type some of those. Okay, that's for another time and place. I'll have to mess with that later. We're going to change our margins to wide. So on the page layout tab under margins, click your drop down arrow, and one of the options is a wide margin. And basically wide is 1 inch all the way around. So we just choose wide. It did do what we needed it to do. And we're going to repeat the row titles on the second page. We're going to go into the page, we're already there, page layout tab and page setup. On the far right it says print titles. It's only the far right of the page setup gallery. So click print titles. This worked when I did it on my laptop, but I taught this in my MicroOffice apps class, and for some reason it absolutely did not work on those computers. It did really, really strange things. It put page breaks in places that shouldn't be there, and we went from having 4 pages to 10.
Oh my God.
And I don't know what it was, that something about the computers, I'm not sure. So hopefully it'll work in here. We're going to repeat the row titles on the second page. So as soon as we clicked this print titles, it brought up our page setup dialog box. It says print titles in this area here, kind of towards the middle top, rows to repeat at top. I'm going to click in that bar here, and I am going to select, because it wants us to repeat the row titles on the second page. So by row titles, I am assuming that it's meaning A2 through E2. Now, as soon as I click in A2, it does this, it selects that entire row 2. You can actually type right in here if you want to, or you can click and drag. So I could have typed A2 through E2. It really won't make a difference because this will actually show what we want it to show. But it says rows to repeat at top. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that was right. Now click OK, because we're going to change our page break and we're going to take a look at how that just worked. We should have looked at it previously so you could see, but we'll get it. We're going to go to page break preview. So in the lower right hand corner we have those 3 views. We're going to choose the last view that says page break, and any of these blue lines mean that's where the page breaks. So this page 1 goes all the way down between row 42 and 43, and we're actually going to click that dotted line, and it wants us to change that to where it goes right after the items located in the garage. So we're going to click on that blue line and drag it up right under row 38. So it's going to go right between 38 and 39. And if that's hard for you to see, you can actually change this view. You can zoom in, then you have to scroll down. So because they have it pretty small. So now our page 2 starts a lot sooner. And the point here of adding those titles across the top is that previously on page 1 we could see those titles, but on page 2 we couldn't. And so if we went to actually view that in print preview, those titles wouldn't show, and now they will. So let's do that real quick before we go any further. Click File and then Print. And you can see our page 1, it has the room, the item, the serial number, cost value. You go to page 2, those still show up here. So that is really nice, especially when you're doing something that's long like this. You don't have to keep flipping back to the front page to see which column you're in. Okay, so exit out of your print preview. It tells us in step 5 to set the print area to print the kitchen items. So we're going to scroll down to page 2. We're going to select the kitchen items, A39. Don't select column E, by the way. Otherwise, it shoots us onto, I can't remember what it did for me, but I had to go back and deselect it. So D31. So A39 through D41. And we're going to set the print area. So we're on the page layout tab still. Choose print area, set print area. Then it wants us to add the office items to the print area. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to select from A53, use your control key, sorry. Actually, I don't know if you need your control key. A52, I said 53, but it's 52, through D59. So A52 through D59. And we're going to add this print area to what we just set. So in the page layout tab under print area, we're going to choose add to print area. So now both of these areas would print. And they would also have those titles across the top. But before we go to print preview, we're going to change the grid lines and the row column headings to actually print. The row column headings are the A, B, C, D, and then the numbers of the rows. And then the grid lines are obviously the lines between each cell. So on the page layout tab where it says grid lines and headings, right now we're viewing them, but we want to print them. So go ahead and check print beside each one. And when you go to File, Print Preview, or just Print, it will actually show the columns, the rows, and the grid lines. And then it will also have these titles across the top. Now, if we wanted E, and there was a reason I didn't do that, because originally I did put the E in there and there was something that was weird. So I came back and took that column E off. We didn't have any information in it. But if we were going to print it to use it, we would probably need that column. Okay, so go ahead and save this. You've named it EX4W9. And you can close all of those. We have about 10 minutes. I don't know if you want to use that or not. We could go ahead and start working. You could go ahead and start working on project 5, jobs 2, 5, and 6. So project 5 starts on page 128. You'll have class time on Tuesday to work on those also. So jobs 2 is a worksheet. Job 2 is a worksheet. It's a budget worksheet. Job 5, it looks like it's using a template. And then job 6 is a block letter. So jobs 2, 5, and 6 in project 5. 128 through 132. And we'll have all the class period on Tuesday to work on those. Hopefully we're getting ourselves caught up. We're not right now, but hopefully we'll get ourselves caught up and get those 2 days back. But if we don't, that's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world.